Hi, my name's Tom, and welcome to my first ever book talk video. Um, I've never really been a big reader. Um, I've really enjoyed the thought of reading books, but I've never actually been a big avid reader. I've listened to a lot of audiobooks because that's the sort of medium where I can sort of ingest it a lot easier. Normally, I'll start a book, get a portion of the way through, and then just stop and then never pick it up again and think to myself, "Oh, I never read that book. Never really finished it, but never actually get back to it." But recently, I've started reading and I've started to really enjoy it. So I thought I would start by doing a vlog of capturing what I've read, what I've enjoyed, what I've not enjoyed, and sort of build up from there. Um, so I went and had a little look at the books that I do have and books I've read before, and what I've enjoyed and what I haven't enjoyed. And it's a very, very small pile. There's a lot more audiobooks in there, which I might go through in the future. But that'll be a very different sort of setup than this. I might have to actually make a list of the audiobooks that I've read. Um, but if I look at the pile of what I have read, actually, there's not a lot there. If we look at what I have read, I read this, which is Alan Garner's The Weirdstone and Brisingleman, which I read in primary school. I say I was read it too. My dad was also a primary school teacher, and he was a big fan of this book, so he read it to me as well. Um, and it's sort of based around two children who are being chased around an area, mostly a forest, because of something they have. And where it's based is this area here, and you can actually go and do a walk of all the places that the children go to and meet all these fantastical things. Such as you can go to the caves where they meet a dwarf, or where a wizard comes to visit them. It's a really nice book. I know what happens in this book, and I've told it to my son on a walk, and that he wasn't enjoying, to sort of keep him entertained, and he really enjoyed it. And he's asked for me to read this book to him, but I think it's a bit old. It's more sort of older primary school rather than early primary school, which is where he is. Um, so I've got it, and I will read it to him, and when he's old enough. But this is one that I do know of. I have read this book, but I don't remember what happens in it. I know the story. I've seen the film, but what happens in this book, can't remember. I remember having parts in it where there's slang used that's difficult to understand, and there's a bit in the book that tells you what each word means, but read it but can't remember. I've read this book again many years ago. Really, this I enjoyed to read. Again, I was much younger, and I don't think I grasped the story behind it as much as I do understand it now. But I do enjoy George Orwell books, hence why I also have this one, which I bought and I've never read, but I do. I have listened to the audiobook of it, and I bought it because I really enjoyed the front cover for it. Because if you look, it's just these two blacked out parts here, and I don't know whether you can catch it on the light. There's some embossing inside, and then the embossing says 1984 by George Orwell, which I really enjoyed the front cover for it. That's why I bought it, but I never actually ended up reading it. I've read a page or two of this. I would say maybe 2 pages, maybe three, which is Henry V. At university, we did a lecture on leadership, and there was a part of the lecture where they showed the video of the speech Henry V makes to the soldiers before the battle. So I bought this book just to read that part because I enjoyed it that much. This is part of many books that I've started and not finished. There are other books that I have read in the past which were going to fall with this one. I've started it and never finished it, which is Martin Luther King's autobiography. And I love Martin Luther King, and I've watched documentaries about him. I listened to his speeches, but I bought this thinking, oh, I love the man. Let me read the book. Did not like the book at all. It was just not my cup of tea. Wasn't really captivating for me, and didn't make me think I really want to get back into this. So I started it probably 2007, 2008, and I'm still on page 180 with the bookmark still in there. Of I think it's about 400 pages. So Maybe in the future I might restart this and read it, but it is a dense book and there's a lot of information in there that I'm not sure will keep me going. But who knows? I'll keep hold of it and maybe restart that book again. Um, Now this is just to talk about a series that I have enjoyed, and I have a couple of the books, but I mostly listen to an audiobook, um, which is the Sharp books. Now I have a couple of these dotted around the house, just because if I see them in a charity shop, which normally has several of these around, I'll pick them up just because I really like the story. Um, these are the Sharp books by Bernard Cornwell, and they're just really easy, simple stories. I like the history around it. It's sort of set in the early 1800s. A lot of it's around the Napoleonic period, and it follows Richard Sharp, who somehow ends up at these famous battlefields, such as at the Battle of Trafalgar. Later on, he ends up at the Battle of Waterloo. And I enjoy history, and I think the way that these are written, it sort of blends history in with a storyline. Quite a simple storyline. Sharp, him and his band of men get into trouble. They have a fight. He might fall in love with a girl. She might die. She might run away. Whichever. But they're just really enjoyable books that I've enjoyed. One selection of books that I do have here. I bought these as a set, and again, I saw them. I thought, oh yeah, I really like them, and I really like the story. And it's the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. Now I have read this book. I haven't read these ones, which are the continuations of the books. But I really loved the covers that came with them because it's the old original covers. And I do now I've got these back out. I do want to read these, and they're only really quite small books. They're not particularly big books. And historically, little books or big books take me what feels like a lifetime to get through. And I think it took me a long time to read this one, which again is quite small. So I'm hoping that I can get back into these. And I've read this book. I've got the original audio adaptation that they did on the BBC from sort of the 60s or 70s on LP. I've got the original TV series on DVD, and I've watched the newer film, which isn't as good. But I love the story, and I really like the comedy books, and I find them quite hard to find. So this one I really enjoyed. We're talking about comedy books. Another book which I think actually I've read more than once, maybe mostly because I forgot what happened the first time, is Spike Milligan's Adolf Hitler, My Part in His Downfall. Really small book, really old. I think this was someone else's that I've ended up acquiring. And it was just a really, really enjoyable read. I like Spike Milligan. I like his comedy. I like the things that he's drawn inside the book. And it was just a really, really funny, easy read. And I enjoyed it. And they're the two books probably that I've really enjoyed. And they've mostly been comedy books. And again, a lot of the audiobooks I've listened to have been comedy books. But I find them hard to come by historically. But that's the extensive list of things that I've read. I think I've read Of Mice and Men, again at school. There might be another few books that I have read that I can't remember, mostly because I've just not been that much of a reader until very recently. Now, I'd love to say that it's been the new year and I've gone, oh, for my New Year resolution, I'm going to read more. But that is not the case. I was going through some social media one day. I was flicking through, and then this post came up about horror books. And the first book that I saw on there was this one. And I don't know why, but I thought, oh, I'll give that a go. Now, this is a colour e-reader, mostly because I do read, or I have read, a lot of comic books in the past, just because I got into the comic book craze where I really enjoyed reading them. Quite simple, pictures, a few words, easy to flick through. So I got this to read comic books with, and I've read a lot of One Piece through this. But I thought I would use it for actual books now. So I downloaded and got Between Two Fires, and I read through this book, I'd say, in about 2 weeks, which doesn't sound like a big achievement for most people, but for me, unheard of. I loved this book. It follows Thomas and a little girl who meet right at the beginning of the book, and it's really their journey from one part of France down to the other part of France, and all the things that happen between there. Horror, maybe I don't um, grasp horror that well. I'm not quite sure. I didn't see it as much as a horror book. I'm not sure what I would put it under, but I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the story that was behind it, and I thought maybe horror books are my thing. So I went back on this post, went through, had a little look. I'm just trying to find out what else I might enjoy, and I got this book, which is A Short Stay in Hell by Stephen L. Peck. Didn't really know much about it. Just read what it said, the short description, which was about a Mormon who goes to hell and he gets put in a library in hell. Okay, cool. Started reading it. Again, first half, I'd say half, 3/4 of the book, did not see horror. Really interesting. And I'd say in 3 hours, I read this book. Again, never read a book in 3 hours before. Burned through it. Went. Towards the end, the last sort of quarter of the book, made me feel things a book has not made me feel before. And at the end, when I got to the last page, I had this sort of sense of dread in my stomach at the end, where I thought, I'm not sure I want to read a book for a couple of days, because this sort of made me feel things that I've not felt in a book before. More so even when I've watched films before. I do not watch horror films at all. Do not like horror. Not my bag. Don't enjoy them. I remember watching, what is it? The one where they're in a forest. Um, the word Twilight is in my head, but it's not Twilight. Where they're in a forest and they've got their cameras and they're filming around, and at the end something horrific happens. I remember watching that in the middle of the day, with builders in the house, and I was terrified. I played Alan Wake, the video game, not my bag either. This, really enjoyed. Don't think I like jump scares, but this, really nice. So I had a bit of a palate cleanser where I read a couple of comic books, because I was still enjoying reading. I wanted to read more, but I'm not sure I wanted to delve into a big book again for a couple of days, and I'm not sure I wanted a horror book at the time. But I've now got to a point where I want to read something again. So it worked for the past 2 books, so I thought I'd go back to this post, look what else is in there in the horror books, and I found this one which sounded quite interesting. Same sort of time period as Between Two Fires, and it's called The Starving Saints, by Caitlin Starling. So that's going to be my book that I'm going to start reading over the next sort of few weeks. I'll see how it goes. I'll see whether I enjoy it or not. I've got 30 pages through and I'm enjoying it so far. Not a lot's happened. We're just sort of introducing the people and the storyline and what's going on. But I'm enjoying it so far, and I'm hoping that this is something that will be as good as the last 2 books. It sort of helps me get on the journey of wanting to read some more. So yeah, that's the book I'm going to read at the moment. I have got another book that I'm going to read, which I got, which I asked for. So someone bought it for me, which is very kind of them. Which is We Came by Sea, which is a very, very different sort of book. This is a book by Horatio Clare, who went and interviewed some people who are down south and in Dover, who are rescuing the boats, who are coming over from France with the refugees. I think with this time, things that are going on at the moment, I think this is a really important book, so I wanted to read it. But it might not be something I enjoy. It might be something I enjoy. So I'll try and give this a go as well, but we'll see what happens with that one. I'm hoping that in the future there's going to be less books that I start and don't finish, and I just go through books more now. But we'll see. If there is anyone that does watch this video if you want to recommend any books that you think, having looked at what I have read and enjoyed and what I'm reading at the moment, you think I might enjoy, let me know. And hopefully this journey goes on to be more than just one video. Maybe there'll be two. Who knows? There may be 3 videos. But we'll see what happens. But thank you very much. And let's see what happens.